Welcome back for another video. My name is Sean and I'm a registered dietitian. Today we are going to be talking about estimated energy needs. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that most of them are on nutrition support. And in the videos that I've made so far, I give you the calorie, protein, and fluid needs of the patient. But in these few videos here, I will show you how I come up with the calorie needs, the protein needs, and the fluid needs. So I just got done the protein video, so let's talk about energy needs. Now, there's a few different equations that we can use to determine energy needs for our hospitalized patient. The first one is for our non-intubated patients. We use the Mifflin equation. Now, we have access to the nutrition care manual through the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. They have a calculator on there that runs these equations for us, which is really nice. But you can download apps or go to Google and type in Mifflin calculator, and all you have to do is type in their gender, their height, their weight, and their age, and it will run these numbers for you. So you can do them by hand, but you don't necessarily have to. So the Mifflin's a great equation. Now, the Mifflin gives you their resting energy expenditure. It doesn't account for things like activity level and other stress levels such as trauma or surgery. So we use something called a stress factor and an activity factor to account for patients who need more calories than to just survive. We want them to heal. So the activity factor, I usually use a 1.1 activity factor for all my patients. Now, if I have patients that are like locked in or completely immobile for whatever reason, a 1 would not be unreasonable an activity factor. But for most hospital patients that are bed-bound, I use a 1.1 activity factor. And for your stress factor, 9 times out of 10, I use a 1.2. Now, if you have a surgical patient, a malnourished patient, if they come in with wounds, or there's something else going on where you would generally give them more protein, I'm usually going to give them more calories. I rarely just give people more protein without also accounting for a little bit of extra calories as well. So if you run the protein numbers and they're a little bit higher, then you would use maybe a 1.3 stress factor. Generally speaking, I typically don't go higher than a 1.3 stress factor and a 1.1 activity factor because it puts their energy needs really, really high. I don't think that some of these bed-bound, fairly immobile hospital patients need 2,700, 3,000 calories a day. So take a look at the patient, take a look at their overall medical picture, and give them the needs that you think make sense for them. So a lot of this is subjective, but a 1.2 to a 1.3 stress factor and a 1.1 activity factor will be great for most of your non-vented patients. You can also use the Harris-Benedict equation. It's very similar to the Mifflin. In my limited experience using Harris-Benedict, it generally overestimates compared to the Mifflin in terms of if you do both on the same patient. The Harris-Benedict, from my experience, gives you an extra 50 to 150 calories on top of the Mifflin. Now, that's not why I don't use it. We just don't use it. We use the Mifflin. Penn State. So there's 2 different Penn State equations, and this is what you're going to use for your vented patients in the ICU. Now, keep in mind with your Penn State equation, I'm going to write it in big letters here because I don't want you to forget. You don't adjust. You don't adjust your Penn State equation. There's no activity factor. There's no stress factor. The number that you get from your Penn State equation is the calories that they need. You don't adjust it.
Don't adjust it.
So there's 2 Penn State equations. There's the 2003 and there's the 2010. The 2003 is going to be for most of your patients that are vented. The 2010 equation is adjusted for patients with a BMI greater than 30 and an age greater than 60. So again, using the nutrition care manual, it will determine based on the information that you've provided which which equation to actually use, so you don't have to think about it. But if you have an app or something and you have to figure out which equation to use, keep in mind the 2010 accounts for BMI and older age, whereas the 2003 would be used for BMIs under 30 and ages under 60. And then last but not least, we have Kcals per kg. And in a lot of hospitals, this is actually popular. And we kind of, here at this hospital, we kind of fluctuate between the Mifflin and Kcals per kilogram. Oftentimes, I'll actually use both and determine kind of, okay, if one's a little high and one's a little low, I'll shoot in the middle. So your Kcals per kilogram, for the lower end of the need, it could be 25. Sometimes I'll do 25 to 28 for elderly people that aren't malnourished, that aren't surgical. You can do 28 to 30 for your generalized hospital patients. 30 is really a great place to start. If you're not sure, just use 30. And then you can even go higher depending on if your patient doesn't weigh that much and you're using their actual body weight. Then 30 to 35 is what I would use for them. So for example, if you have a 50 kilogram patient, they'll need about 1,500 calories here and maybe closer to 1,700 to 1,800 calories if you go higher. So again, this is the general rule of thumb that we use. You're going to want to account for if they have higher protein needs, they probably have higher calorie needs as well. And then taking a look, have they been eating before they came in? Do they have any planned surgeries? Do they have any wounds? What would be driving up their metabolic rate so that they would be burning more calories, and then accommodating for that in your equations. So thanks guys for watching. Hopefully you find these videos helpful. If you have any suggestions or questions, you can post them in the comment section down below. Thank you so much. Cheers.